live.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this conversation today. My name is Sheila Kasaine, and today I'll be your host in the next 1 hour or so. We have a wonderful guest. We've been looking for him all over. I guess he's been hiding in his den, rather enjoying his bottle. He'll tell us more about that. One of the guys has many firsts, I would say. He's a writer and an author of 2 books. Yes, at his age, that's such a great feat. And that's why we are more interested in finding out about his literary journey, how he got initiated into writing, how it has been for him, his experience in the publishing industry, and whether or not really we Kenyans do read. None other than the warrior himself. He left the sword to wield the pen. And here he is with us. Lesalon, karibu sana to Zero Chills.
Asante sana, bro. That was an amazing introduction. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
That's wonderful. Now, let's go straight to our conversation, Lesalon. You've written books. You just published a recent anthology, which we shall talk about in length and depth. But now, I would like to hear, because all of us have a starting point. Where did your writing journey really start? What was the inspiration for you to pen a book, which is the first text, Around the Campfire? What was the inspiration?
Okay, so when you ask me about my journey, you make me think of a politician, Senator Ledama Olekina, is currently the senator of Narok County. So I come from Narok. So many years ago, Ledama started a library in Narok called Masai Education Discovery. And one day I discovered it. So most people used to go there to read academic books. But then when I went there, I found a section of novels. So I started reading a lot of Goosebumps series. I read a lot of Chronicles of Narnia, the Moses series. And that is when my love for books began. And then later on, I came across a book by Major Mwangi, a book called The Bush Trackers. And after reading it, I said, I want to write like him. I want to become a writer. Yeah, so that's how my journey began.
That's really wonderful, because we always say that a writer is first a reader. And I think there is a continuous sense to that assertion, that you started by reading means you immersed yourself. Was your drive intrinsic? Was it because you saw books that you started reading, or were you, put into a program where you have to enjoy books, you have to read them, you have to make books part of your life? Was it extrinsic motivated, or is it that you had the drive from within?
I had the drive from within. That I can confidently say, because I remember when I was in primary school, I used to watch a lot of movies, a lot of Jet Li, a lot of Jackie Chan. So during break time, my friends would come and surround me, and then I would start retelling the stories from how I understood them. So I guess I was a storyteller from way back. But then when I was in class 4, when we started doing compositions and inches, I had amazing teachers who I wrote about. Like I wrote a few compositions, and they were like, "You can write." So since then, I started writing just jokingly, and then my compositions would be printed out and put up on the notice board for other people to read. And then I realized, oh, I can actually write. Then so later on, when I got introduced to Goosebumps series, to Major Mwangi, I read, and then I discovered that for me to write, I have to do 2 things. I have to read like a writer, and then write like a reader. And then since then, I've never looked back.
That's interesting. Read like a writer and write like a reader. Wow.
Yeah.
And some of which you've mentioned somewhere in your book, Around the Campfire, that at first you started by writing on your website, publishing on your website, before you realized, now I should convert this into book form. Why repackage it into?
Okay, so when I cleared my secondary school education, Society. Society thinks that writing is not a career. Writing is a hobby. Writing is something that you should do alongside something else. You should become an engineer. You should become a marketer. You should become a doctor who writes and all that. So after my Form 4, I went to campus and I knew writing is not a career. So I went to do cooperative business and then I started a blog, like a small blog on WordPress. It was called Pen Dancing on Paper. So I was just writing to breathe easy. I was writing because it came attached to my breathing and I have to write, but I wasn't thinking of writing as something big. This is something that I've gone to class. I don't understand statistics. Economics is too hard. So to breathe easy, to let that steam off, I would go and write on this blog, and I would only share it to close friends, maybe my crush. And then one day, my mentor happened to come across one of the poems, and then he told me, "Where does this poem come from?" I told him I have a website, and then he told me, "I want you to go and copy paste everything that is in the website and send it to me." So I did that, and he told me this could be a book. It could be a collection of short stories and poetry. I said, okay. Then he introduced me to Bethel Publishers, and I deleted everything from the blog, and that is how my first book came to be, Around the Campfire. So I tell people that this is a book that I wrote without knowing I was writing a book. I was just a guy blogging, and yeah, so that is how my first book came with blogging.
That's actually breathing easy, getting into the real pool of writing and publishing serious work without necessarily having realized that. Now, we shall talk about writing as a career and why you have a day job, and you've kept your day job while at the same time seriously writing because, well, your works are serious. But what do you think? What was your main concern in the assortment of Around the Campfire? Because reading through the poems, the flash fiction which is in there, and the creative nonfiction, to me it tells me you are celebrating nature, celebrating the people around you. Actually, you've lauded your mom a lot and your crush, at some point. You'll tell me about, but what was the main drive? What was the motivation in writing Around the Campfire? What would you say?
Okay, that's an interesting one. So I like saying I'm an ex-idiot. My inspiration was just observing life and telling it as it is. I have a crush, so let me write a poem for this crush. She has said no, I'm heartbroken. Let me write a poem about a heartbreak. I love my mom. I've hurt my mom so much. In high school, I was expelled a couple of times. 2011, Anesta High School was burnt down. A dormitory called Kilimanjaro is part of it. So, like, I've hurt my mom so much. It's time to show her that I'm now mature and she can count on me. So, let me write her a poem. So, basically, Around the Campfire was a young guy in first year, just writing things to breathe easy, writing stuff on his diary. Most of the stories come straight from my memorabilia. I still have that book where I just sit down and write stuff, and then later on I typed them. So Around the Campfire was just a younger me writing about my experiences, writing about yeah.
Let me interrupt you. What you mean is that you are recording your journey of transformation as the central character in your book.
Yes, that's for Around the Campfire.
That's wonderful. No, not much for Around the Campfire, but how was it received at first, by your audience? Because being a first book, there must be some uncertainties, some sort of disbelief. So how was it received by the audience, and how has it performed in the market?
Okay, it was received well, but I think there are two aspects. There is a book that is received well because readers love it, readers who do not know you. And then there is a book that is received well because you have a lot of support from people who know you already. So for me, Around the Campfire, it was support from people who knew me. Because I remember I did a very big book launch at Marble Lac Hotel. And my relatives, my mom, they took a matatu and they came all the way from Narok. My university gave out their bus and 60 students came for the launch. And I remember I sold 110 copies in one day. So the question of whether they were buying this book because it's good content or because they know me, I still haven't gotten an answer for that. But that is where I started. And Around the Campfire is mostly loved by teenagers. I don't know why, but that is what I've noticed. I think because it has a lot of love poems and heartbreaks and stuff. But that's it for Around the Campfire.
That's quite a lot of support, from family and
Yeah.
from friends and general readers. And we would say maybe the reason as to why teenagers accept the book is because it's quite relatable with their experience. I've read it and I have seen it addresses the younger the younger self. And when you have to remember to look back and look at the mistakes that you made at some point in life. So I would say perhaps it's because the younger us, the teenagers, really do relate with the kind of character who is portrayed in that book. That's great. Now
Sure.
let's talk about the book. I just finished it another day and I've read raving reviews about Three Balls from the Brew. Why Three Balls?
Yeah. Okay, Three Balls from the Blue came from I read Jeffrey Archer's 12 Red Herrings. So, and then in English, a red herring is a mystery. And so 12 red herrings basically represents 12 mysteries. So a bolt from the blue is something that is unexpected. And so I said, okay, in my book, I have three major unexpected things. And that is how the title Three Bolts from the Blue came to be.
What's the story behind? Because I really understand it has been motivated or inspired by a real story, which is arguably terrible, something that is quite unanticipated for, and you wouldn't have wished yourself for that, but the outcome really motivated the whole book. So what's that story behind the Three Balls from the Blue?
Okay, it's not a good story, although right now when I look back, in retrospect, I laugh. So in 2018, it happened that a lady called Monica was murdered, and then it became big news. It was a mainstream media breaking news, and so a guy called Joey was arrested, and then later on Jackie Maribe, the journalist, was arrested. And I was following the story. I wanted to know what is happening, but then came a twist where it happened that the gun that Joey supposedly used was registered to this ninja called Brian Kasaine.
What a coincidence.
It was a very big coincidence. So, and then the mainstream media broke the news that Brian Kasaine has been arrested for owning the gun that Joey used. So I remember I had attended a graduation ceremony, my friend's graduation ceremony at USIU. And then I was getting these calls, I was ignoring them. Finally, I picked one call from my friend. She's a writer, Unia. And she told me, if you've picked this call, then I'm happy because it means you're not the one. I was like, what do you mean I'm not the one? She told me, go and check the news. So I saw Brian Kasaine has been arrested. And it became crazy because the Brian Kasaine that was arrested is a businessman and he does not have any trails on social media. So when people were trying to Google for Brian Kasaine, they were actually finding me. So I got cyberbullied on Kilimani Moms, on my Twitter, on my Facebook, everywhere, and people were saying this young man is a criminal masquerading as a writer. So the case went on. I remember being bullied to a point I got depressed. Okay, right now I'm wondering why I was depressed, but during that time I was depressed. I remember there was a time I cried. I cried, nikaangusha gangster points. I cried. It was in the morning. I was headed to work. By then, I was an intern journalist at Kenya Buzz, and then I saw this message on Kilimani Moms that how are light skins, they're criminals, stay away from such. And then They had taken a good photograph of me. Then I had been called to speak to some students in Narok County at a hotel owned by a nominated MP. But when the nominated MP heard that it's Brian Kasaine speaking, he cancelled the whole event. So for me, it was really hard. I got depressed. I had to surrender myself to detectives, first at Kiambu, DCI headquarters, and then they sent me to their offices in Central. I recorded a statement, a self-recorded statement. They asked me questions, asked me who I am, where I come from, who my mom is, who my dad is, and everything. Took scans of my ID. It was ugly. But later on, when my name was cleared, so I befriended this detective, and then I approached him and told him, okay, the case is over. So I have this idea of crime fiction. Can I tell it to you so that you can give me facts? And he said, it's okay. And so I gave him the facts. And funny enough, one of the cases that I gave him, he told me that it actually happened somewhere in Bomet. So I asked him how these guys who come to take fingerprints, crime scenes guys, how are they called? He told me, how would you react in a case where this and this happens? So he told me everything, and that is how Three Bolts from the Blue came to be. So it's people say it's the case of life giving you lemon and then you turn it to lemonade.
That's such a journey. And, I'm trying to reflect on the ideal of mistaken identity, which pushed people who obviously I would say or accuse them of being a bit too lazy, if not lenient, to find facts indeed of the individual who was who had been arrested, and the mistaken identity pushed you to the point that you are depressed. You say in Around the Campfire, you're saying that you poured yourself, from a young radical, a young radical criminal of sorts, and you used to express yourself in writing to breathe easy, to give yourself an easy time out of the difficult situation. Why is it at this time writing did not really work as a therapy? It did not turn therapeutic and you had to break down. So what was the role of writing? That's, yeah.
I don't know. Okay, at that time I was unable to write, and I wish I was able to write, because if I was able to write, maybe I would have used that as therapy. But I remember it's so hard for me to write. I have to have peace of mind. So it was so hard for me to write when I sit
Yes.
down and try to. It was hard for me to write, really to write at that time. So writing did not help me. It's only, but I used to read a lot, because I remember nights where I could not sleep unless I read or maybe took some whiskey. But it was like 2 months later that I was able to write, and I recounted the whole story, how I felt about it and what I've learned from it. And it was published by Oklahoma's Nandoc Media, and then KBC also did a feature on cyberbullying. So it was 2 months later that I was able to write about it and speak about it. But during the time, I was just depressed. I was unable to do anything.
I'm really sorry you had to undergo the experience, and I'm really grateful that you got out of it and now you're telling us stories. From Around the Campfire to Three Balls from the Blue, that's such a transformation, from non-creative creative nonfiction writing, writing basic poetry, romance, to serious crime thriller. What would you say are first the aspects as an individual which have enabled you to have this kind of transformation? You don't just move from one journal of writing to a different one within a short period of time, and making such a radical shift. It's definitely not an easy way. So that kind of transformation journey, how has it been for you? And why did you espouse crime?
Okay. First of all, currently I'm reading a nonfiction book called The Secret of Ages. And one of the things I've learned from it is that the purpose of existence is growth. So if you're existing and you're not growing in whatever field, then there is a question mark. So for me, I remember when I wrote Around the Campfire, I was so psyched up. I remember I even emailed Major Mwangi and I told Major Mwangi, I love your works. You've been an inspiration and I've written my first book. And he actually replied and told me, great, you've written. I asked him questions about the writer's block. So passion kept me on a path of growth. And I kept doing more. I kept wanting to become more. I kept watching documentaries. I kept listening to interviews by authors I love listening to. Development or growth is a continuous process and it's never ending. There's no one time that you'll get to a point and say that now I have reached. And I enjoyed Ngugi wa Thiong'o's interview. He was asked which of his novels he's written that he feels it is the thing. And he said none of them. He said there's still that one novel that he wants to write. It's still inside him. So the thing about writing, it's like an illusion or something. You do something, you think it's the best. Once you have it, you feel it's not the best. You want to move on. So I think hunger and thirst for growth, that is what made me transform from Around the Campfire to 3 Bolts from the Blue. The ability to learn how to learn. So I'd wonder, why does Kinyanjui Kombani's book bring a lot of debates and stuff? Why do people love it? And then I realized it's because the characters are so real. So I would call Kinyanjui Kombani, we meet, sit down and learn from him. So I think one thing about sitting down and listening, it's very important, because when you talk, you're talking about things you already know. But when you listen, there is a higher probability that you will hear something that you did not know. And so that is how I kept growing. And of course, a lot of James Patterson. I listened to a lot of James Patterson on how his creative process is. So I learned from him, but with the understanding that knowledge of the creative process cannot substitute creativity. It can only make you keep going when things are hard. So that's what I can say about my transformation.
That's wonderful. Let's talk a bit about the stories in 3 Balls from the Blue. I am sure there is somebody who is listening, and we are not about to spoil it for them. But then, just a bit a tasty eyes for the book. The first short story, rather, in the anthology, got my attention, just a sleepover. And we have this gentleman who is taking a friend to a friend's place. You know, you've really written with a very relatable sense, and especially using physical locations, which we are all aware of. And you've also combined different journals, different styles of writing. There are text messages, there is a journal, there are diary, and then there is the conversation. Now, the ability to combine all these different styles into one story and manage to keep the same plot, you know, to the very end, you manage to keep the reader grip from the beginning to the end of the story. That's a really new one for me. I would like you to talk to us about it.
Yeah, I think I will attribute that to a lot of reading. And I would tell any writer who's probably watching this that once you know what you want to write about, then go and find a lot of books on the same and read like your life depends on it. The same thing I said, read like a writer and then write like a reader. So I had read a lot of James Patterson, a lot of James Hadley Chase, Major Mwangi, Jeffrey Archer. And then when I'm writing, I decided I don't want to be sophisticated or something. I decided I want to think of one person. So when I'm writing, I assume that I'm telling this story to one person. I don't care about the rest of the world. I care about this one person, and I want to write in a way that they will keep begging me for more. So for me, that is always my cousin called Zoe. So Zoe, Zoe. Every time I'm writing, I think about her. So I'm imagining she's here and I'm telling her the story. And then I decided to try something new, to try in the first chapter, I tell it in first person. The second chapter, I tell it in third person. Then I wanted to make it so real and so relatable. That is why you'll realize I used emojis, I used the journal entry, and I did some research. I remember sitting with some friends and asking them, what do you think about this story? Because for me, a wonderful story has two aspects. Number one, it's the storytelling skill, the flow. Number two, it's the idea. It has to be an idea that when you tell someone in just one sentence, they'll be like, I want more of that. So I approached friends and told them, you've called a girl over for a sleepover. You've done whatever happens during a sleepover, and then you sleep, and then in the morning she's dead. And then everyone was like, I want more of that. I want more of that. So that is how my process was. I was looking at only two things: how to tell a story, whether I'm breaking rules or not, how to tell a story that will grip you, and an idea that if I just mention it to you, you'll be like, I want more of that.
So you try your story ideas before you get into actual writing.
Yes, I try them, and if I don't try them, there are stories that I've seen they have created interest. So I read a lot of. There's a guy called Owa, OWAH.com. So I read a lot of him. He writes about Kenya, things like crimes that are called cases, crimes where politicians were involved, but they were swept under the rug and justice was never served. So I read such things, and then I see how people have commented. I see that this is something people are interested in. And then I sit down and ask myself, how can I fictionalize this? Because fiction tells the truth through lies. Fiction is a ghost-like representation of reality. You take reality, but then maybe it happened in 2017, but you set yours in 2020. Maybe it happened in 2014, you set yours in 1947. It happened to a man. In your book, it happens to a lady. So that's what I've been doing, a lot of research. I watch a lot of FBI documentaries. I love the story of D.B. Cooper, the guy who in real life took an airplane hostage, demanded for ransom, and demanded that everyone in the plane gets fed good food by the government. And everyone was fed, and he got his ransom, and he disappeared, and he's never been arrested. I don't know, it's 30 years or 50 years later. So such things intrigue me. I keep watching these documentaries, and then I ask myself, this person, for how long had he planned this thing? What goes on in his mind? What is his background? Why wasn't he arrested? Where is he right now? Then I create a fictional story. So yeah, that's my process.
Great. So it seems that you feed your creativity through reading others and also watching creative films. I would like you to read for us from your 3 balls from the blue. But before then, I would like to identify a few people who are in conversation. I can see you, Ovita Kenny says that he's following, and Roy Leshan also says that he's with us, and everybody else. We appreciate you for being present in this conversation.
Shout out to Roy Leshan.
Your all comments or any other suggestion as we go on. We are almost halfway through. Yes, Lesalon, you will choose from whichever story to read from us. Just read your favorite section. I will listen.
Okay, just a minute. Let me get the book. Yeah, sorry, I had to go get the book.
He's about to read for us from his favorite section in his new book, 3 balls from the blue. Yes, let's on.
Okay, just a minute. Let me find this place. All right, I'm good to go.
Great.
Okay, so I'm reading from the story We All Weep. Okay. It drizzles slightly as I lean with both palms on the trunk of my car. I hyperventilate. Moving Jacqueline's body has taken a lot out of me. Goodness, I need to get back to the gym. The rain increases and I can feel it pelt on my back, the ta-ta-ta on my leather jacket. Little streams cascade down my face. Jacqueline is in the trunk, crumpled like a life-sized doll, lifeless, ready for dumping. I move around the vehicle to the driver's door, pull it open, and take my place behind the wheel. I turn the key in the ignition once, and the engine turns over. Shit, I must go out again to open the damn gate. 10 minutes later, I'm gliding down the tarmac, my windshield wipers squealing and flailing. I have the headlights on to full brightness as the now heavily pouring rain blurs my vision. Hail pellets pummel on my roof, tires slowly grinding on the rain-slicked road. I can't remember the last time it rained hail pellets. It must be the heavens receiving her soul. It is 9 p.m. from the glowing red dials flashing on my dashboard. Given the heavy rains, few vehicles are on the road. I can only count 3 vehicles that glide past me on my way down Ushirika Road, Karen. At a steady speed of 60, I drive towards Gataka River. You loved swimming, Jacqueline, and so I choose water to be your grave. See, I still love you and consider your likings, even in death. Yeah,
By the time
that's
I
okay.
drive,
I should go on.
uh-huh. That's a wonderful section of this story, and really, my God, it's chilling. I can't imagine how you really sober enough to just smother somebody to death and put them in the trunk, and you're going to deposit them in water. Well, I have been asking myself a question: why is it that the author would not have chosen a better punishment for this girl, Sheila? Why did you have to kill her? Why? Why didn't she have to die so painfully, especially after a big after a night of pleasure, and now you feel offended, and he has to kill her. Why is that? Why, as an author, wouldn't you have chosen a more benevolent punishment for her? Because that's chilling.
Okay, that's an interesting one. I don't choose what I want to write. I only create an outline. But then while writing, this is weird, but it feels like I'm taking divine dictation. It feels like I'm taking dictation from some force. Like maybe I didn't intend to kill her, but while writing, I end up killing her. And then I'm like, wow, I'm surprised. So Harry can kill. I didn't know he can kill. But basically, that's what happens to me. When I'm writing, I just get to this space where I have an outline, yes, but the story changes a lot. Like in We All Weep, there's a place where in my outline it reads that this detective is supposed to drive and get to this suspect and interview them. But then while writing, I decided to put him in an accident. I don't know how, so I'm just like, oh, so you've decided to have an accident, then
So
go
your
ahead
story
and have
just
that accident. So yeah, it just happens to flow. But I think my subconscious is influenced by the things I read, the things I watch, and maybe by the case of Jackie Maribe and Monica, the fact that she died and was involved in a very ugly way. So maybe it affected my subconscious in a way. So when I was writing, I just had to make a good lady die. And I remember wondering what my mom would say when she read that book, because there are people who've been like, hey, why would you write things where such a good person is dying? Are you a psycho or something? But then I tell them you should learn to separate between the author and the narrator. I'm the author, I'm not a psycho. And then there is the narrator who's telling the story of a psycho. And people have to die. And it's good when people die, because if you're expecting a story where people are not dying, where good people are good people and good things are happening to them, then that's not a good story. I want a story where you'll not see something coming. You will not predict anything. You'll be enjoying it, and then boom, someone dies. And for me, if
and I
that
think
happens, that's when I'll say I've accomplished my goal.
yeah, that's the essence of saying that creativity is fluid. You do not necessarily have to follow a rigid path, a rigid outline. At some point, the characters take their own course. And now, you see, the reason is why I asked that, actually, it's not necessarily because I wanted you to tell me why you went that direction, but the understanding, this is a reflection of the society. And as earlier you had suggested, which is truthfully so, that fiction do reflect the reality. It is a mirror for what's happening or going on in the society. So when we see a man killing a lady because she has cheated on him, these are things that are almost every day present in the news. Yeah. Now, as an individual who is also part of this society, what do you think of such occurrences where people really have to commit murder for love?
Such instances scare me a lot because I remember, I don't know whether it's 1 year ago, 2 years ago, where someone in Eldoret hacked a lady because she supposedly cheated on him. And I remember there was a time through a veteran novelist called Peter Ochsner, I went to do a book reading of Around the Campfire at Langata Women's Prison. And then after the book reading, I got a chance to interact with them. And I remember this lady who was having a different uniform, a different sweater from the rest. And then I asked her, why is your sweater different from the rest? And then she said, the people who wear the kind of the sweater I'm wearing have committed capital offenses. So I asked her, what did you do? She told me I killed my boyfriend. I stabbed him, I don't know, 20 what times. I was scared. I was like, when are we getting out of this place? So such things scare me a lot because I've been at a point where I've experienced heartbreaks. You've committed to someone, and then you don't know what is happening behind the scenes. She's cheating or something. But then I've been asking myself, what is the worst thing I can do to this person? And then I realized there's nothing I can do. I can only say that's okay and walk away. So it intrigues me to wonder what was in the mind of this person who is cheated on, but instead of moving on, they decide to kill. And it's very sad, and it's happening in our society. And I don't know whether it's people say in our generation depression has hiked. I don't know how true that is, but that scares me. And so when I was writing Three Balls from the Blue, such things kept crawling back from the recesses of my mind, and I kept asking myself, why would someone do something like that? And so I decided to create a character who kills his girl because the girl is cheating on him. But I've never understood the motive, though I read a lot of articles, I watch a lot of documentaries. One of my hobbies is to understand the motive. Why would you just wake up and decide, I'm buying this panga, I'm taking it to be sharpened, and I'm going to kill this person? What is going on in your mind? What is it that makes you different from other people? What is your background? Where did you grow up from? And such stuff.
Yeah. Well,
And
great. So technically, for the benefit of resolution in the story, you let the criminal, turn himself into the police at the end of the day and face the punishment. Now, my question is, do you think that the legal justice as it is currently really gives justice to such victims? People who fall victims of the disgruntled lovers and decide to kill them. Do you think the legal justice has really done any justice to most of them or those who find themselves in such situations?
okay, yeah, you're talking about the first story, just a sleepover. So when it comes to the legal justice system in Kenya, I think it has succeeded and it has failed. And I will explain. In such cases where it's me who decided to kill a girl, the law will be so hard on me. It might take a lot of time before I am convicted. I don't know why it takes a lot of time, months, sometimes years, but finally I will be convicted. But what I've realized with the Kenyan system, the failure, is that once a case is politically charged, then that story could easily be forgotten. It could easily be swept under the rug. And I don't know why. So I think that is something that hurts me that is something that also makes me write. The current story I've just written, it's about a girl who gets involved with a young politician, and then she ends up committing suicide, leaves a suicide note. But then when the detectives analyze the note, they realize that there are some inconsistencies. We have handwriting experts, forensic handwriting experts. They realize that there are some inconsistencies, meaning uh, the dead person wasn't the one who wrote that suicide note. There must be foul play. And so in my story, a politician is involved. And I got that idea again from owa.com, because it has happened in Kenya. There is a girl who died some years ago, and she left behind a suicide note somewhere in Kenya. And later on, they discovered that wasn't her handwriting, and that it's a cold case. It has never been solved. So such things make me think convergently, divergently, and decide to create fiction. But basically, I think in some areas the legal system in Kenya is okay, but once it comes to politicians, it's screwed up. I wanted to say fucked up, and then I remembered maybe I'm not allowed to use such terms. It's screwed up.
Well, that's one perspective to it, and it's really shuddering and chilling, and also nerve-wracking to even think that people do not get justice when such crimes are committed against them. There's no doubt that your books, Lesalon, have been received greatly, and we have talked about Around the Campfire before. But now I would like you to tell me about the publishing, publishing experience, because I guess most of the mainstream publishers have been accused of being gatekeepers to the young creatives, budding writers, that we are not allowed to compete with the writers, the authors of the old who have been in the trade for a long time now. But you seem to have, from the outside, from where I sit, I think you've had a smooth ride with publishing experience. What's your secret about that?
First of all, I'd like to correct you. I haven't had a smooth journey, so to speak, when it comes to publishing. Yeah. It's been really tough. You read Three Balls from the Blue, and when you read We All Weep, I have there's a character called Jacqueline. She's a writer, and there's a place I say that publishing in Kenya, especially if your book is a thriller, it's a pipe dream, because publishers in Kenya want academic stuff that can sell to schools, because at the end of the day, it's business. So for me, publishing has been really hard. It's been like having my head pushed underwater, and then I have to struggle to come up for air. Because I remember before I published Three Balls from the Blue, I made a lot of mistakes with Around the Campfire. When I was publishing, I lost a lot of money. So when I was publishing Three Balls from the Blue, I had some experience. And you know what they say about experience, that good decisions come from bad experiences. So you have to go through an experience for you to learn. So when it came to Three Balls from the Blue, I had to consult a lot, but I decided to go solo because there's a publisher, these hybrid publishers, there are a lot of them in Kenya. They are publishers, but you're the one who's taking care of the publishing cost. So I remember someone who told me I need to pay a 90K. I don't know, for manuscript evaluation and what. So it's hectic, but finally I decided, look here, you're a creative, and for me, when I read the Bible, the part that says we were created in the image and likeness of God, I don't see it as the physical appearance, I see it as the mind. So if my mind is in the image and likeness of God, who's a creator, then I can also create solutions. So I wrote the book, and then I decided I'll go solo. I will outsource stuff. So I looked for the best layout guy that I can get, the best cover designer. Then I looked for an editor. So Around the Campfire, I will be very selfish. not Around the Campfire, 3 Bolts. I'll be very selfish if I say that it's entirely my work, because it brings in effort from different people, a layout guy, an editor, a printer. So I just brought together different creatives from different places, and the book came to be. So for me, I think in Kenya, it's so hard to publish. Yeah.
The quality of the book itself shows the efforts. They weren't in
Yeah.
vain.
Yeah, I had to go for quality this time, because you'd rather pay more money but have something, a good story packaged in a very nice way, that once someone reads, it's something they can keep in their library for a very long time. They can pass it on to their kids. So I wanted quality that will last. Yeah, but generally I think publishing in Kenya, it's not for the faint-hearted. It's like climbing a big mountain without an oxygen gas tank. It's just crazy. It's either you are known. If you're not known, then you have to go through people who are known. Then if that's not the case, you have to write something that is academic, something that you have to prove to them that this thing will be bought in schools and it will make money. But if you're doing 3-line stuff, yeah, it's crazy, but we keep going, we keep building the brand, and we hope one day they'll look for us.
I think that's coming from you, someone who has had the experience in the publishing industry and writing itself. It really scares me, to even get myself started to think about initiating the process of writing and publishing. I also have the thought that if you really would have stuck with the traditional publishing, we wouldn't be talking about this book today, maybe 5 years from now, because I think these guys really stuck their manuscripts, the manuscripts for years before they even consider. And that brings me to the next point. Most up and coming writers and creatives have decided to go self-publishing. One of the things which have really been contested about is the quality of the text, and especially when you come to the editing. We find that most of the self-published books out here really are wanting, and the ideal of missing an editor has been associated with the weak in the quality of self-published books. What do you think of those people, the up-and-coming creatives, who feel that mainstream publishing is indeed a gatekeeper to their creativity, and that they have chosen an alternative path? I know what you chose, you've said it was quite costly and it must have been quite involving. But what do you think of the self-published authors? Because there are quite a number of them now.
Okay, first of all, I'll start from where you started from, saying that you're scared. I don't want you to be scared. And if you must be scared, then be scared yet fearless.
Great.
Fear sometimes it's not there to scare us, it's there to point us towards what's worth it. I can tell you I was scared too. It was crazy going solo, but at the end of the day, once I accomplished it, I sleep with this kind of satisfaction that I just can't explain. So don't be scared. If you must be scared yet fearless. Go for it.
Great.
About self-publishing, it's true that most self-published books are littered with a lot of mistakes, because editing is a very important aspect when it comes to writing books. Because I remember my book, after being edited like a number of times, 10 times, when I got the initial copies, I still read the hardcover and I still found mistakes which I had to correct. So for me, editing is very important. I love what's his name, Stephen King says that we have all fallen short. Everyone has committed editorial sin. And an editor is a very important person, because once you have a good editor, you can write, like Hemingway says, write while drunk and then edit when sober. My editor, I personally had to look for an editor and pay a lot of money. Okay, maybe it's not a lot. A lot is subjective, but I had to pay for him to edit my work, because I think editing is the most important part. I attended a writing seminar a few years ago, organized by the Writers Guild of Kenya, and they had invited Oyunga Pala, and he told us one of my take homes was that the real writing is in the rewrite. So I have to write while free, forget about everything else, and then once I'm done, I need to get an editor who will work with me. And currently, my editor is called Tim Moria. He's the former managing editor at Kenya Buzz, a guy who's into film. And so I felt that he's the right person to edit my works because he's into film. And while writing, I focus on trying to make movie wheels turn in your head. So I write asking myself, when someone reads this, will it ignite the 5 gateways of knowledge? Will it make them see, feel, taste, hear? So someone who's into film would be a great person to edit my work. And he's been doing a really great work. There are places tumekuwa tuna rewrite, and he keeps telling me that writing is individual, but storytelling is teamwork. So for all writers who are going solo, I can tell you that you really need an editor. You need to find someone, you need to find better readers who can read your work and give you their opinions. And if the opinions hurt you, unakasirika, or you leave the book first for a while, and then once you've calmed down, now you look at the facts in whatever they said, whether it was positive or negative, and you try to learn from it. So an editor is very important. We can never ignore an editor.
So that's really great. Writing is rewriting, and an editor is the individual who really holds your hand towards the complete completion of your work. Now that you go mainstream, in mainstream publishing, there are readers, there are a group of people who take a book and decide against a given yardstick, literally yardstick, that indeed this text is worth it. It's worth to take out there, even though one of the criterion is whether or not they'll make a lot of money out of that text. Yeah. Now, do you have a certain group of writers or people who tell you indeed this is a text, it's a story worth telling, while taking it out there? Or do you have an individual criteria that you use to determine that indeed this story, I'm propelled to believe that it's a great story which should be shared out there with the people?
Okay, I remember when we started, I told you that I'm an ex-idiot, because when I started writing, I wanted to please everyone, literally everyone. But currently, I'm not after pleasing everyone. So first of all, I get ideas that I must write. Whether people read or not, whether people love it or not, I must write, because if I don't write, I'll not sleep. I'll be feeling inadequate. I'll be feeling there's something you had in you, but you sat on your hands. You did nothing. And so when I write, like I told you, I have this one person in my mind. I'm not telling this story to the world. I'm telling this story to this one person. And like James Patterson says, that while writing, I think that I imagine that someone is seated across from me and I'm telling them this thriller, and I don't want them to get up before I'm done. So I just write. I write first of all to please myself. I ask myself, is this something that if you read, you would feel it's amazing, it's something you'd recommend? Then I write for that other person. Then after that, I share it to the world. And I don't care how it's received. Okay, sometimes it's received badly and I feel bad. Sometimes it's received well and I feel good. But so I have learned to have a very small circle of people who are into what I'm doing.
Reviews.
Yeah. So I have this small circle of people who are into thrillers, people who are into film, script writers, directors, because there is no way I am an engineer and then I take my engineering work to a doctor and ask them what they think about it. So what I do, I have a circle of around 6-8 people who are into what I'm doing. So I take my work to them first, and then I take their advice, whether it's positive or negative. I go work on it, I rewrite, I do a lot of stuff, and then now from there, that's when I can share it out. So yeah, I have I have a team around 6 to 8 people
Okay.
that I have to pass my work through first.
That's really great. One of the things that I love, because I'm really in love with hardcover books. I love reading while I'm holding the text. I held your
Yeah,
book, and the thing I realized is the quality of the pages before I even got into reading. The quality of the
yeah.
pages. You hardly get to see people taking time to select the kind of paper that their writing will go on to. But then the price of the book is pretty fair compared to most books out here. I've found most self-published books and most books that are being released by up-and-coming creatives range at least 1,000 shillings, 1,000 shillings. But you chose to give us the gift of 3 balls from the blue with a fair price of 700 shillings. Do you feel like you're going low in terms of the money that you should get or the refunds that you should get from the book?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because there's something I love saying, that we wash our clothes not because we want them to get wet, but because we want them to get clean. But in the process, they get wet. So in the same way, I do not write to make money. I write because that is who I am. But in the process, I end up making money. And so I don't want to talk about the costs of publishing one book, but I can tell you that when I sell my book at 700 shillings, there's a margin. I've made my profit. And I remember we had discussions with a few close friends, and they were telling me, no, have it at 1,000. And then I told them, okay, I have friends whom we graduated with. I graduated just the other day, 2018. I'm one of the few people who are lucky to just graduate and get a job. So I'm like, I have friends who love reading. They graduated and they still don't have jobs. So I want to have a fair price that they can afford, and at the same time, I can have my margin. And for me, my greatest satisfaction is when someone is stressed and then they get into a matatu and read my book and text me or write me a letter and tell me, I read your book, and for 1 hour, for 2 hours, I forgot about my problems. I forgot about everything and I just enjoyed it. That is my satisfaction. And then my mentor, one of my mentors, and it was Steve Mutusi. He's a cognitive psychologist, the founder of Personal Development Challenge, a personal development company that I volunteer with. We are out to inspire, challenge, and empower. He keeps telling me that a job is what you are paid to do, but then a calling is what you are made to do. And life will be at its best when you are paid for what you were made to do. So for me, as long as you buy my book at 700 shillings, you're paying me for what I was made to do, and I'm satisfied. I've made profit, even though it's not profit kubwa. If I sold the book at 1,000, so at 700, I'm okay. I just want people to read my stories, and for me not to have a loss. As long as I've made something, that is
That's
fine, and I'm okay.
that's why I asked is because the books in Kenya, most of the books are quite expensive because the government really taxes us, and that is one of the reasons. So that's one of the reasons which discourage the culture of. And then we will be running around saying, "Oh, Kenyans don't read. Oh, Kenyans don't love reading. They don't love books." But now your step, I think, is quite laudable that you chose and you considered your audience, not just because you are intending to make a lot of profit or a huge profit margin, but because you really wanted to encourage us to read. Whether or not we would buy, you decided now, well, let me give out this book at a fair price. And for that, we are really, really grateful. Now, we are coming to the
Perfect.
end of the show, Lesalon. And
Yeah.
before you give our audience the details on how they will get your book, I would like to
Yeah.
ask, do you have a specific thing a specific experience as a writer and a reader? We didn't talk about how you really balance between your day job and your writing, because some of us really have excuses as to why we are not consistent with the trade. But then, would you have something to tell us as the writer, as the reader, and someone who has a day job?
Okay. First of all, what I can say is that if you are a writer, but then you get a day job, something that is away from writing, go ahead and take it. Because at the end of the day, we have to pay bills, we have to do other things. And then maybe as you work on this other job, you keep saving. Saving is very much important. You keep saving, you keep making plans so that maybe one day in future you'll get to a point where you don't have to work for someone, but you can now work for yourself. You can do your stories, because it's very hard for you to ask me to sit at home and write that idea that I have. I have so many ideas, but it's hard for you to ask me to just sit at home and write it, where else I have to pay my bill, so I have to go and work for someone. But I'm lucky that currently where I work, it has something to do with books. I work for Transread Technologies, and we run two applications, Android applications. Fickle means fiction is cool, and then Lightreader, which Lightreader, we started it just this year. So with Lightreader, you can actually search, download, and read offline whatever books you want. So it's an application that just gives you power to decide what you want to read, and you search. We have a very powerful search engine that once you search, it gives you very amazing results. I'd like to say it's a search engine on steroids. So you see, for me, working at a place where we are dealing with books, and part of my job description is to look for books and write reviews, so that the reviews can appear on the app, so that you can decide to download that book and read it. It's amazing. So I count myself lucky. But I did not start here. I started with doing things that were not related with writing. But at the end of the day, if you are a writer, then you understand that it came attached to your breathing. The same way you're breathing, that's the same way you have to write. So whether you're doing whatever you're doing, you have to write. I love the story of Kinyanjui Kombani. He's a banker who writes. And I met him and he told me, yeah, I'm a banker, but every day when I get home, I have to create 1 hour and write. And so I think it's about finding that one thing that strums at your heart's guitar. I keep telling people everywhere I go that you cannot do everything, but you can do something. And you should make that one something your everything. So that's really, take that day job. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Take that day job.
Now, there are people who are asking, how are we going to get this crime thriller?
Okay. So currently, you can get it directly from me. You can text me on my social media pages, Lesalon Kasaine, Facebook or Twitter, and I will have the book delivered to you. I have plans to have the book in bookshops, major bookshops in Kenya. But now the problem with bookshops is that they told me the pricing will have to change, because the government will take a tax of 14%, and then the bookshop will take 30%. So there are a lot of politics going on, and currently we are in negotiations. But at the moment, you can get it directly from me. Just text me, and then I have a team of youths who are active. It will be delivered to wherever you are in Kenya. Yeah.
So Lesalon Kasaine on Facebook, Lesalon Kasaine on Twitter.
At Twitter, yeah, Lesalon Kasaine on Twitter, or at Kasaine_Brian.
Thank you so much, writer, for choosing and making time to speak to us and to our audience.
Yeah.
We are grateful and such a thrill. And I would like to say that I'll go back to the same lessons again and choose not to be afraid. If I'm afraid at all or scared, I'll choose to be fearless. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for making time for today's conversation and joining us for that great. If you need to read this drill that is 3 balls from the blue, please get in touch with the Lesalon Kasaine and you'll get to immerse yourself to a great literary experience. I really did, and that's why I'm confidently recommending it to everybody who really cares. Thank you so much, everybody. Until next week, a time like now, on Friday at 4:30, please stay safe from this flu and everything else. And I wish you well. See you next week. Lesalon, please stay with us.
Perfect. Thank you.